Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name's Sarah and I am the mom of an 18-month-old little boy. And today I'm going to be talking to you about my Montessori shelf setup. I have been doing a How We Montessori at Home tour, room by room, and this week I thought I'd jump right into how I do my shelf setup and how to set up a Montessori shelf in your home so you can Montessori at home too. This is my shelf. It is the IKEA Kallax shelf. It doesn't necessarily have to be this exact shelf, although I do know it's a popular one for a lot of people because it has the squares in it, so it makes it really easy to set up. But it can be any shelf. Actually, it doesn't even have to be a shelf. It can just be a spot on the floor or a spot on the lowest part of a bookshelf. It can be really anything that is a designated area for you to put out your toys. Montessorians tend to go for more of a shelf setup versus something like a toy box because it's just a little bit easier to see what their toys are. Having all the toys all jumbled up in a toy box can just be overwhelming, and apparently you find that in a toy box they don't actually play with the toys quite as much because it's just too much. They get overwhelmed and they just don't even. Whereas if they're laid out beautifully on a shelf, the idea is that it attracts the children to the toys and they want to go and explore them. I personally enjoy the shelf because I can see what he likes, what he doesn't like. And another thing is that we tend to not put all the toys out at one time. We only put out a few toys and then you can rotate them. So it keeps things fun, keeps things interesting, see what they are into, what they aren't into, what's getting used, what's not getting used, themes in their play, and you can kind of customize it as you go. Some people are into doing the rotation exactly every week or exactly every month and almost scheduling it. In true Montessori fashion, following the child means seeing what they're into, what they're not into, and how things are going and kind of adjusting accordingly. So I don't actually follow a rotation schedule. I just kind of switch things up when I'm noticing that some things aren't getting used, then it'll come out. Or if I'm noticing he's into something, then I'll put something out in replacement that seems to be more what he's into lately. In this video, I'm going to be focused on toddler Montessori setup. After that, you can get into more complicated things in terms of the shelf setups. But for the toddlers, so you want to make sure you have something going on in the home that supports each of these 5 categories. So you've got hand-eye coordination, music and movement, practical life activities, arts and craft, and language. So a few of these are really easy. Music and movement, musical instruments, music in general, dancing, movement, meaning like gross motor skills. That can be something as simple as pushing a big chair across the room. A lot of Montessorians like what's called a pickler triangle. Anything that is moving the body. It doesn't have to be necessarily something on the shelf. It can be going outside, things like that. And then music can be actual songs, or it can be making music themselves. What I've done for music is I have this little setup down here under my water station. So I have this water station where my little one can use the water, and there's also snacks in there. But underneath it is where I've decided to keep my musical instruments. So right now I have a little ukulele that I found thrifting. I have a tambourine that I also found thrifting. It doubles as a drum, so I put a drumstick out there. And then I have this little keyboard that I found thrifting for like $4, and it is fantastic. It's so old school, but he absolutely loves it. So anyways, that's my little music station. So no matter what else is going on the shelf, that little station always has some musical instruments in there, and he can do that whenever he wants. In movement, I have balls set up. We have a high top dining room table. Underneath the chairs, they're high enough that I can put a little container underneath, and that's where I keep his balls. This container is just a expandable plastic thing. I think it's for dishes that I just found at the dollar store. Get creative. So that's another great thing for movement as well. I like to always have balls around the house. I find balls are great if we're in the mood for throwing. When we're dealing with angry and frustrated feelings, sometimes throwing comes out, so I always redirect and say, if we want to throw, we can throw a ball, and they're just softballs that won't do much damage. So that's my music and movement station set up over there. Arts and crafts. Arts and crafts is a tricky one. I am comfortable now having the chalkboard and chalk out because if the chalk gets on other things, it's pretty easy to wipe off. But in terms of keeping out things like markers and paints, I think at this age, at 18 months, he's just not ready to have sort of free reign to that. I just don't feel super comfortable with that yet. So for now, he constantly has access to chalk, and the chalk chalkboard, and then I make a point to do some coloring with markers and crayons and pencil crayons, and dipping our toes into gluing things as well. That generally tends to happen at our little table here, but yeah, those are more supervised things. Practical life is another easy one. Practical life, what that means is anything to do with just everyday stuff. So that can mean sweeping or dusting or wiping the table. It can mean brushing his hair. It can mean putting shoes on. Anything that is just daily, regular stuff is considered practical life. So that's just built into life. Doing laundry, practical life. Washing dishes, practical life. So practical life is all around us, everywhere, all the time. Mainly right now, what I have my shelf set up for is hand-eye coordination and lots of language. All around us as well. Languages, no matter where we go, we're learning language. At this stage of the game, he's just starting to talk. He's got quite a few words now, but everything is him practicing words and learning words everywhere. So that's just kind of a given too. Hand-eye coordination is the main thing we're looking at in the shelves here. What's not included in Montessori is imaginative play. So a note on imaginative play. So Montessori is an education system. It originated in the classroom. Classic Montessori is all closed-ended materials, not open-ended materials. So what I mean by that is there's a purpose to it. Usually one purpose to this material. They're learning one thing and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Open-ended play or imaginative play is when they're pretending, make-believe, dressing up, things like that. None of that stuff is classic Montessori. And that's just because Montessori is an education system. You're learning things. There's a purpose to it. Montessori at home, in my opinion, there's always room for imaginative play and open-ended play, because I think that that's a huge part of childhood, and I think it's a huge part of how they work out the world around them through this role-playing and all that stuff. So I am a huge advocate. I just try to keep it as realistic as possible. Montessorians believe that realistic things are what we should focus on, not so much characters. So talking animals, fantasy, branded stuff, all that is really not cartoons, really not Montessori. They believe that children should be spending their time learning about what's real in life, because there's so much cool, interesting, real stuff to learn about. And the other thing is that I believe before the age of 3, it might be 6, but I think at least 3, they can't differentiate between fantasy and reality at all. So it's just really confusing to them. So I try to keep that in mind. The last note is Montessorians go for natural materials. Natural materials are aesthetically pleasing, also sustainably, staying away from plastic. So wood, silk, ceramic when possible. I do have some plastic things because just realistically, plastic is cheaper and it's easier to attain. We also get gifts that are plastic. So, I'm not like super hardcore, but I really do try to veer towards natural materials when I can. Same with the realistic thing. I still, especially with the books, I think that there's a time and a place for characters and fantasy. And I think that the imagination there's something to be said for, the magic of childhood and stuff like that. So I still read him books that have characters in it and that are not realistic, but I try really to go for the realistic if I have a choice. So for the shelf. Schemas that he's into right now are the rotation schema, so anything that twists and moves in a circle. So he likes to take caps on and off things, and knobs, things like that. Anything that twists, he's really into right now. The trajectory he's been into for like ever, and that's just continuing on. So throwing things, going back to the movement, the balls is great for trajectory. Vehicles, he really likes cars and trucks, so. Also in our living room while we're doing the tour, I have this little table set up. It also doubles for us as the arts and crafts table, and typically I have it open and empty. I might put a little vase with some flowers in there, or maybe a little bowl with some nature items in there. But right now what I have is an invitation to play out. So I don't often do this, but he's been sick this week, so we've been spending a lot of extra time indoors, and I just thought I would make something kind of cool and kind of interesting for him. Invitation to play is actually not Montessori, it's Reggio Emilia. There are a lot of parallels between Reggio and Montessori. Montessori. So I sort of borrowed this idea from them, and it's just set up so that it makes him want to come over and see what's going on. So he just recently started to show interest in puzzles, which I'm really excited about. I've been waiting for this for so long. And he's also been interested in animals forever. So we're learning the names of animals, so this is definitely a language lesson. We're also learning the puzzles, so the hand-eye coordination. He's also super into the imaginative play. As of probably about a month ago, he really likes the animals to take sips of his water from his straw and even show up at our meal times once in a while. Anyways, kind of getting the hang of the puzzles. Moving along, next to it, I DIY'd this weather wheel. It's just my own drawings, and it's simple because he's still pretty young, so we're just learning sun, rain, snow, and clouds. And I just used a brad pin and my laminator and made it, you know, toddler proof. A little toddler-sized chair where he likes to kind of hang out sometimes, and just a blanket that I knit him. I have a doll out for him which has some realistic features, so we're talking about body parts and a little bit of a language lesson there. A penguin, and then right behind here actually I have hidden his IKEA tunnel and little tent. So for gross motor skills and movement, this is tucked away, but we love having it out and having a good play in there. I'm really trying to get creative with the small space and just kind of tuck everything away. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, the notification bell, and the like button. It really helps me out and I super appreciate it. You can also always follow me on Insta, and very soon I'll be dipping my toes into TikTok, so stay tuned for that.